So, Alex, in this episode, we had what could have been the absolute perfect setup for the shock return of Beverly Crusher, and they didn't do it. I mean, have you ever seen anything in Star Trek just have the perfect situation, the perfect setup to knock it out of the park, and just disappoint?
Yeah, the Wrath of Khan.
Drop your shields! This is the Enterprise. Return our personnel or face immediate reprisal.
Two lives hang in the balance.
The captain needs our help.
Phasers ready, sir.
My friends, my people, they're trying to kill us.
Fire.
On Star Trek, The Next Generation.
But in all seriousness, I was much more disappointed by this. I mean, how
Yeah, I
awesome
do like Wrath of Khan.
Yeah,
That
we
was a
we
joke.
like it. We like it.
Before you finish your comments, that you're going to type regardless. Let's talk about this episode. Let's talk about Samaritan Snare.
Picard's having this surgery, and they did set up at the beginning of the episode they didn't want it to be Pulaski because he doesn't want anyone on the Enterprise to know what's going on.
It will be inappropriate for you to carry out the procedure.
You're concerned about your image.
He's getting this heart surgery. It's all of a sudden not going well, and one of the surgeons is like, I know someone who's qualified to do this. And they even show Pulaski still on the Enterprise in the next scene. Oh, maybe it can't be her. Maybe it won't be her. And then when they reveal the surgeon after his surgery is done, it's from the back, so you don't see their face. And you're thinking for just a moment.
You think just for that second, we're not going to we're see like the shot from behind. We think we're going to see that the hood pull off. We're going to see that beautiful red hair come down. I'm just picturing. But no, it just cuts. And you just see that fucking.
What the hell are you doing here?
Saving your life.
I saved you, didn't I, Picard? Yes, I did. Special guest appearance. Just Picard telling his story about why he's even getting this on the ship with Wesley. Probably my favorite scene.
Unbeknownst to me, one of his chums drew his weapon and impaled me through the back.
Because it's just Picard sitting there telling the story, and I don't need a young actor playing Picard or Patrick Stewart with the toupee, getting impaled. It's like, the great thing about acting, really good acting, stage play acting, whatever, it's like they can just tell that story, and similar to a book or even just a script, it's like your mind does it for you. And I was picturing that. That was nice. Everything else was fine.
Yeah, I think all the stuff with Picard and Wesley on the shuttle is definitely the best stuff in the episode, all that character stuff. And then let's talk about the other story of the episode. You got this group of, I think their name is like Pack Lads.
We are Pack Lads. Our ship is the Mondor. It is broken.
And they're just this overweight species, four-head alien. So here we go. Here's an example of what a four-head alien is.
A little better than a four-head alien.
A little bit.
It came down here a little bit. So I thought it was enough. Like it wasn't just like a divot in the nose. Would I like an entire ship of Benzites where they're all like, smoking their pipes? Yeah, sure. But I can deal with 8, star-shaped weirdos.
Yeah, it was fine. But the story itself, I was not really into. I mean, it ended up being better than I thought it was going to be. When it first started, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be entertaining. But the way that they took it and having Geordi trick them and having to get Geordi back, it was a nice little way to do it for a fine story.
Okay, they want to play rough, that's fine with me. Just let me check something.
Good. He is on our side now.
It was still entertaining, but it just didn't stick out that much to me.
Yeah, I like the fun stuff where it's like, oh, our chief weapons expert, Geordi LaForge.
And of course, your knowledge of phaser and photon weaponry is unmatched.
You can make us strong.
It's not something that I really like to talk about.
I do like that Worf was right in this, because it's always, I feel like it's always the other way around. We should blow him up. We should destroy him. It's like, oh, our phaser, it's like, hey, slow down. Like in this case, like he was correct.
We do not know anything about them.
Acknowledge, Mr. Worf. We have an obligation to render aid.
But I also like how Worf wasn't, I told you, he didn't, he was doing his job, I mean, he's a security guy, so I like how he wasn't, in their face about it, like, I was right, you suck. It's like, I was doing my job.
That's really all I got to say about it. I mean, it was fine. It was like middle of the road. It was a Star Trek episode, I think you said, so.
Yeah, we already talked about it at the end of the reaction, but I don't like, because the whole thing was Picard didn't want to be embarrassed about his surgery. He didn't want the crew to know. He didn't want him to be like exposed or like not invincible, because he wants like that level of the captain to be like, they go to him, he doesn't go to other people. Like, you know, he's like The Rock, not Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, like solid, like The Rock. Like, we look to the captain for support, and he feels like even just having a weak heart makes him vulnerable. And we thought the lesson was, because he didn't want Pulaski to do it, that he was going to be able to accept and open to, you know, like, okay, she did the surgery. I'm open to my vulnerabilities to my crew. So I'm with you guys. But like at the end, it's like, oh, we'll make no mention of this. You know, it's like never happened. Oh, you're right, sir, never happened. Yeah.
Yeah, the ending scene was the classic, typical wrap everything in a bow scene.
Any rumors of my brush with death are greatly exaggerated. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
We didn't even mention, and they barely mentioned in the episode, the whole reason they're going down there for Wesley is because he has to take this academy testing. And they go down there, and when they get back, he's like, Wesley passed his test, he could stay on the ship, and everything for me was greatly exaggerated. Engage. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
It's like, oh, I thought we could have had a nice, like, I'm coming closer with my team here, even closer. They now know a crazy story about me, and maybe they'll feel open to tell me some of theirs. But not this time.
Yeah, not this time.
Yeah, I just miss Gates McFadden. You know, Pulaski's getting to me.
Yeah, it's rough because, you know, Diana Muldaur, again, just to remind anyone who's new here or only watched TNG with us, you know, she was one of our favorite guest appearances in the original series with, you know, there is in truth no beauty.
No. She's blind.
You are blind, and there's some things you see.
Whoa! What?
As that blind woman, and great performance. And, you know, I don't think she's a bad actress necessarily. I just think the character, the way that it's written, it's a female Bones, and it just seems like everything they've tried to do with her just doesn't really hit the same as Bones, but also just hit at all, really. It just is like everything just kind of seems like she's this like intruding nuisance. You know, the next episode is better for her. We'll talk about that next time, but like in here it's just like
Yeah, Gates just had that like humanly, motherly, amazing charm, or she had that like compassion for human life, similar to Bones, but she also made it her own. Like, she didn't feel like a carbon copy. Like, she felt like Beverly Crusher was her own person.
Again, not necessarily her fault. It's just everything that they've done with her character. I think she's at her best when she is doing the medical stuff, but she just doesn't do that a lot. They try to make her, you know, hold up other characters or like get involved to develop other characters, and it just hasn't worked most of the time for me. So yeah, it's rough. I don't know how much longer she's in the show. I don't know if it's just this season. If she'll be season 3, episode 1, is she going to be there? I don't know. We'll find out in you know, I don't know, a month or 2 months or whatever. But yeah, it's unfortunate because I you know, watching the first episode of this season and me recognizing her and being like, oh shit, you know, I had kind of high expectations, you know, and those haven't been met, and so it's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, but luckily for this, when we start derailing a little bit, we have our patron takes that bring us back to the episode, maybe remind us of things that we didn't bring up, or things are like, oh, hey, didn't bring that up, or they might agree with us. Maybe they might agree with us, or not. But what do you think? Should we jump in?
Yeah.
All right, this one's from Jess. Quote, we look for things that make us go, quote, has been rattling around my brain for 3 decades. Well, guess what? We're going for 4, because now it's going to be in mine too, and now yours forever. Yeah, that was starting to drive me nuts.
No, I found them extremely annoying.
Oh, so you probably blocked them all out?
There was one part later on in the episode when the reveal started to happen where he said something along the lines to Riker of like, we're smarter than you think, and I thought they were just going to start talking normally, and like that was the twist, like, oh no, we're intelligent, and I would have been like, oh, okay, got me. No, they're not.
Yeah, the whole gimmick being like they've just stolen so much technology that they're not ready for. They're a species that are just like advancing too fast. Like, I don't know, is that a play on humanity with how fast we've come in the past?
I don't think.
I don't know.
I'm not giving them that much credit.
I don't know. The way I think about it, I think everything's a commentary on like the world we live in today. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea for sure. Like, you come across all this technology you can't yet use because you haven't developed enough. Interesting idea. I just don't think the execution was great. This one's from Incredible John. He says, "You'll probably throw some ideas out during your watch, but just in case, I'm wondering what went through your mind as to what Picard's procedure could be before it was revealed. Like he was getting some warp nacelles attached to his junk or something?"
I'm so glad I was about to read that one too, because it's like the way it's like, oh, it's embarrassing, and like Pulaski being the one who's a woman, you know, it's like, oh, it's embarrassing. I'm like, are they gonna do something to his fucking balls, man?
Yeah.
The way they set that up, I don't want the crew to know. It's like they're removing my. It's like, come on.
That is exactly what we thought. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad someone else thought that as well. All right, let me strap in for this one. This one's from John 1701, all caps. Picard lore. Picard lore.
Absolutely.
Always appreciate it, just a little bit, and you always hope that these little bits are going to come into the TV shows later on.
All right, this one's from Rich, longtime patron, and I think this is interesting. "I don't understand the hate for this episode. It's always been one of my favorites of the season." There's always one, man, I'm telling you. There's always one. "The wonderful storytelling in those great scenes with Picard and Wesley on the shuttle are great stuff, and the Pac-Leds are priceless." I can't disagree on like we already said, the Picard and Wesley stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
It is great, and I think it just goes back to what we always say about, like, oh, well, every episode there's one scene, there's something.
There's at least one. There's always a little something there.
But that would not make it one of my favorite. We haven't seen the whole season, but even thus far, not one of my favorites of the season for sure. But again, not a terrible episode. I didn't hate it.
No.
Numinous 2019 said, "Exactly which of the two starships is the one crewed by idiots? The Enterprise crew makes such inept decisions that Worf has to call out each one. What was happening in the writer's room at the time needs to be retrospectively investigated."
Yeah, I would love to see an entire behind-the-scenes documentary on both season 1 and 2. I mean, yeah. I mean, not because of like, oh my god, but just like I'm curious. I would love to see behind the camera. I love the magic of just like seeing what's happening on screen. I've mentioned this a million times before. There's two parts of me. Part of me like wants to just be happy with the world. The other part of me wants to see how is this shit done. What did they do?
I believe there is a documentary called Chaos on the Bridge, which I think is actually either narrated or hosted by William Shatner, actually. And it's about either the first season of this show or the first two seasons of the behind the scenes of the show. But it was made much later, so there's spoilers for later on stuff in the show.
Okay.
Even though it focuses on the first two seasons. That's my understanding, so we can't watch it after finishing this season. That's my understanding. We'll watch it eventually later on.
Hosted by Shatner. Hey, Will, got a job for you. Wait, want me to talk about the original series? No. We want you to talk about.
Yeah. "They tried to remake my show. It was a failure." At first. This one's from Nolan. "This episode might make you go fast." Pac-Leds aside, though, it's actually a fascinating delve into Picard's history, giving us an entirely different side to the man. Dude's actually hardcore enough to be near fatally stabbed and laughed. I love that detail, yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
He's like, "I actually laughed out loud." It also humanizes him because don't we all have things in our past that we look back at and think, geez, I was a fucking idiot. Don't be that stupid again. Yes, I think we all do.
Yeah, every day.
Plus, the fact Picard has a tin heart might explain his emotional distance. Oh, that's kind of funny.
Oh, well, would you look at that? That's funny.
This one here is from David. "I like the Wesley Picard stuff, but every time I start to watch this and remember it's about the Pac-Leds, I skip to the next episode." Fair enough.
Yeah, I can imagine years down the road revisiting this for whatever reason and being like, what is it? Oh, it's like, oh, nope. I can totally see where you're coming from. I would just skip to that. You know what? I wish there was like there probably is a resource out there, like the skim through like the season 1, season 2 episodes for those character scenes, the breakfast scene, the early poker scene. You know what I'm talking about, but just skip all the other crap where it's like situational and just give me that character development. Someone's done it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can end on this one. This one's from James. "Through Picard's backstory in this episode, we learn that his character progression is a reversal of Kirk's. Kirk was a straight-laced, reserved cadet who then became a more action-oriented captain, while Picard was a wild cadet who became a straight-laced reserve captain.
Is that true? Was Kirk just straight-laced? Because didn't he cheat on the...
On the Kobayashi Maru?
Unless he started off super straight as an arrow.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did have that one guy that like beat the shit out of him at the academy or whatever, but
Oh yeah, wasn't that like a...
the guy from Shorely?
Yeah, was that a short... Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's more so just like you could tell Kirk came up through the system, which they all do. But I mean, like you could tell that early on in the show, and then as the show goes on, and then even into the movies, he becomes more. I mean, obviously, even the stuff he does, like in Search for Spock, you know, going against the Starfleet.
Yeah, it's true.
As to where Picard seems like he probably had some wild stuff go on.
It's like I want to see it, but I don't. You know what I mean? I want it. I want that show. I want that movie, but I also don't. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, well, I wasn't that surprised by the takes. I mean, it seemed like there were a few people that said that they loved it. A lot of people were joking about it being bad. Most people just agree the Picard stuff is good.
Yeah, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill Star Trek episode, to tell you the truth. Like one of those down the middle.